We in a place out here that's full of despair. All we hearing is crying and gunshots in the air. A little boy walking with a gun in his hand. A little girl with a kid still looking for a man. But I believe in Christ, everything will be right. They'll hug and smile before they try to fight. And everyone that's lost will find their way to the light.
In the streets they're crying out. Lives go down, they're wanting out. Waited long for hope to come. Sun goes down, the day is done. Can we find our way? Children safe and play.
As a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, and as a pastor in the inner city, or as a pastor in all my life, anytime somebody comes to me, I don't believe they came because of me. I believe they came because the Lord was leading them. And with Cuevas, I felt that the Lord was leading him through my youth pastor in a relationship to the church itself and to Christ. And that happened pretty amazingly in a matter of time, where Cuevas had a situation of whether he stays in the world or enters into the kingdom. I was in show business for 9 years and had a very successful career. And when I left show business for the kingdom, I kind of knew what he was going through. Different from mentorship that's on father-son kind of level. This young man was interested in ministry. So I had to mentor him in ministry. I needed to prepare him for ministry. I saw the gift that he had, that out of his heart, his mouth spoke. And when he spoke, he rapped. And when he turned his life over to Christ, I listened to what was coming out of his mouth. And I was so stirred. As a preacher, I thought, how? I mean, there was no notes, there was nothing. It was just, and it was raw, and it was powerful, and it had such meaning and depth that when he came into the white church that I had adopted from in the hood, there was just 100 white people in there. I started bringing Cuevas onto the altar, saying rap. And in the beginning, I couldn't grasp on. I mean, it was going so fast. And then eventually, we sat and talked, and I brought him on as the youth pastor of the church. And the challenge, that was the challenge, to wrestle this young, vibrant young man who I loved, to try and communicate to him that I love you, and I want to see you successful. And I didn't know what I could touch. I didn't know how I could speak to him. I didn't know, the culture was so different for me that he made me learn about the African American culture that as a pastor I needed desperately. So did I mentor him or did he mentor me? I think it was a combination of the two.
To piggyback off the stuff you were saying, I said this on the radio show, is it was easy to accept something from someone because, I was saying, when I was younger, when I was starting to act up, we have our family Bible studies, and my dad would take me one-on-one in his room. We have literally sit right next to him, and we'd go through the book of Proverbs up until I got a job. I wasn't trying to get a job, but I got sick of Bible studying, so I was like, I need to find a job somewhere. But I would always listen to what he had to say, whatever the case is. So when as I grew up and got out of the house or whatnot, it was easier to accept something from someone else. So when Tony when Pastor Tony came around, or I came around him, it wasn't so much of a battle because I was already at the place of like, okay, my own way got me into jail, it got me homeless, it got me running. There has to be something different. It has to be something different, and learn what you need to learn from your dad on that level. Now I'm going to send you somewhere else. You know, you're always going to go back to your father, but I'm going to send you somewhere because on the church level, I got to teach you some things. He took me to the house and he said, listen, he said, and this is the thing that stuck out the most. He said, you got to learn how to talk to people. You know, he's like, I see you speak in front of important people, da 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 da. You know, you got to change your lingo. You got to change how you talk. You can't, you know, be this way. You know, I'm very arrogant. I was a young know-it-all. And that kind of stuck with me, you know, to how I speak. Because I would go and preach in front of folks and calls like, I'll say stuff like, yeah, so this broad I know, right? Yeah. You know, I was like, yeah, so these, you know, and I'll be saying crazy stuff. And like in the city, it's, you say somebody is stupid, like, man, they so stupid. It's like they're funny.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I'm saying this stuff in front of people who don't know that. So I'm in front of a bunch of people that's like, yeah, y'all so stupid, man. It's crazy. And they're like, excuse me? You know, so I had to switch up, but it always, you know, kind of stayed in my head. And so then in 2008, that was the test because now I moved out to Lyle Road and I wasn't as close to the church because I started doing this is when I run into Mike Peace now. So now I'm doing outreach, a lot of outreach stuff, not in church stuff. I walked past my dad's house, I saw him, and he told me, he said, you've been out of school for 7 years, what you got to show for yourself? Who cares if you can preach, make a living, right? So then I remember texting Mike, I said, you know, what I'm supposed to be doing? He said, you know, be an evangelist. I said, I don't want to teach outside. So here's the crazy thing, it was a sermon that he preached, right? So I'm hearing this from 3 different people, right? At the same time, I'm 26 years old, like the pivotal time of my growth. And I was at the house in Lyle, my car broke down, I started walking. And then I thought about the pit to the palace, you know, Joseph, you know, where Joseph had to learn to become the man that God called him to be. It was just Joseph in there. You know, the one baker died and the cupbearer died, it went on. And he told the guy, like, hey, tell people about me. And then he didn't. And so now it's just him and God. And it was crazy because it goes back to you telling me how to speak. It was, in order for him to go see the king, he had to be presentable. Mm-hmm. He had to be humble. So in that 2-year span, only thing I'm thinking about is, you know, the pit to the palace, the pit to the palace, the pit to the palace. So that's what it is. I can't remember everything, but it's always those bits and pieces that just stay with me to where I can continue to chew on. And then, you know, even the way he loves his wife and his, especially, you know, he loves his children, but I think he got a special thing for his wife. That's just my assumption, you know. His wife had was an aneurysm at night, right? And he said he just woke up and the Lord said, lay hands on her head. And I'm listening to this joint, you know, because I thought I surpassed him because I was gone for the summer. So I'm like, let me hit him with some stolen revelation I got from a preacher he never heard before, right? And when he said that, it just shrunk me like, dang. Like, he knew to get up and just do that. I was like, man, he loves her that much that, you know, here they are in their 60s or whatever old they were at the time that he's willing to do that. And then when people were saying that I wasn't supposed to be married to Sarah, he said, listen, I don't care what nobody says. I'm your covering, and I know this is God's will. So yeah, that takes care of that. So it's a lot of things ministry-wise he told me, because like you said, I was very raw, was to the point, all of that stuff. And then I had to sit back, listen, watch, got sat down for some stuff. But overall, my dad said this about you one time, because I was mad at the whole church, because I was a big-time evangelist, and I'm talking all of this junk. My dad, being who he is, being who he was, he said, you talking about the white guy with the glasses, the old white guy? I said, yeah, he's just listening. And he said, how you going to sit up and say that about him when that man helped chase the devil out your life? And I was like, I didn't come over here for that, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? So God will always remind you of the ones that was there for you. So with Darius, I saw somebody in a dumpster, and I dumped some trash in there. Somebody screamed, and I'm like, "Who's in there?" I was like, "Oh, there." So I dragged him out by his foot, you know. But I met Darius. We was at this open mic, and it's this hot shop. I know, and this when I became the youth pastor, with a pastor in the youth in the neighborhood. It's hot shot with some curly hair. I'm like, look at this goof, man. You know, I was like, look at him, just, it's disgusting, right? And I went up to him and I act like I wasn't a Christian. And he's like, oh, you know, I was just a bunch of, you know, Christian-y stuff, you know. So I said, no, I'm a youth pastor up the street. So I listened to him rap. I'm like, man, he's terrible. I said, well, and he was. And I said, well, let me put him in front of my youth group kids because I was on a concert. And I'm like, man, this is even worse than yesterday. So we had to do an event at East High School, and I was like, you know, he went up there, and I'm like, Freddie Thomas. I'm like, he's dancing and rapping. There's no breath control. I said, oh, this is bad, man. So I ended up taking him home, and that's when I told him about the hope and the hype. You know, I said, stop trying to preach and do things for hype. You know, and we talked. So then up the street was a studio. So I made a song for my wife when we was getting married, and he came down. I knew I needed to bring him down there so he can see a difference in music. And then I asked him, we was doing the Friday thing. So during the day, feet in the neighborhood during the day and Fridays. Mm-hmm. So I called him. I said, do you want to come down here and minister at the church? He said, yeah. So he, you know, got his radio and whatever he had. So he said, where do I start? I said, here. I said, go take the tables out. Help people do this. Help people do that. So the thing is like, any young person, it was like, I'm going to teach you the hope of who Christ is. And he stayed along the way through college, you know, the same kind of thing, you know, and seeing, you know, even when he fell on his face and I told him to, you know, separate from that crowd, and he separated himself from the crowd, and to even being a youth pastor at the church he's at right now, it was, you know, stay the course, serve God and mind your business, hear God for yourself. You know, and in reverse, he got a chance to see, you know, he's at my wedding. You know, seeing my first child, second child, and all this other stuff. So it's always, and I always say the worst kind of person you can ever be is someone who forgot where they come from. You know, so if you forgot that you've been discipled, then you're gonna talk down at people versus disciple. You're gonna talk to them as if you're their boss, you know, and things like that. And he actually did a song. You got your radio? You have your phone? Yours called "Find My Way." Mine's called "On My Way," which is crazy. That's the video. Put the video on. But yeah, it's you know, that's what it's like. Just, you know, seeing his growth throughout the years, and in the way he raps, in the way he ministers to people, who he needs to be around. We minister completely different, you know, but it works for him, you know, and as long as there's fruit, like I minister completely different than Tony, completely different than Mike. I think me and my dad was a lot alike. I think he was a lot more. You get around my sisters, I'm the nicest one of all my sisters. I'm the least spoken one around my family. Wow. Believe it or not, you know, they are like, wow. Yeah. So, but to see how he moves, to see, you know, where I was at 27, he's probably a step ahead, you know, because he just embraced things. And that's why when this beat came out, I waited to do the song with him because I knew he was supposed to be in the song. And this is actually his youth group and my youth group at my house doing a end of the year barbecue. So we supposed to do this, man. New seasons, spreading your wings some, right? Feels good. Going somewhere. Living out my goal, yeah. Feeling it in my soul, yeah. Vision set in stone, I have grown, and I'm on my way. My heart set free, yeah. My thoughts can see, yeah. That God called on me, I believe that I'm on my way. I've been through the storm, yeah. I'm feeling reborn, yeah. I see the open door, praise the Lord, cause I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Yeah, I'm on my way. I'm heading out, I'm stepping out. Peace out, God can't measure out. Once was sick, but I'm better now. Going that extra mile, moving to a better place. Pressing, I won't hesitate. On that beat like an 808. Stopping me like ain't no way. Rising with my head on straight. All that hate gon' fade away. No words can say, can break my faith. Next step I take will shake the place. Do it now, don't change the day. Moving from feather to heavyweight. I get
give them a reason to celebrate. Feeling bold in a major way, and my soul won't be led astray. Moving on a steady pace, it's real gold, it's never fake. And I know to elevate, and my home's in a better state. On the road to heaven's gate, hey, I'm on my way. Living out my goal, yeah, feeling in my soul, yeah. Vision set in stone, I have grown, and I'm on my way. My heart set free, yeah, my thoughts can see, yeah. That God called on me, I believe that I'm on my way. I've been through the storm, yeah, I'm feeling reborn, yeah. I see the open door, praise the Lord, cause I'm on my way. I'm on my way, I'm on my way. Yeah, I'm on my way.
Went from being a youth who fight, now I fight for youth. Went from thinking I'm truth, but now I'm right by truth. Went from eviction notice to all my convictions. Noticed all purity was bogus, but God created pure motives to elevate. Stuck in a boat but never sank. No wind, no waves, no storm.
Yeah, he's alright, but so pass it on to Darius and let him bore you for 3 minutes. Y'all got the gist of it.
Go
Go ahead.
All right, Darius, you got 5 minutes to give your version of all this.
That's crazy. So when Cuevas, when I met him at that open mic called The Vineyard, up by First Street in the city, you know, he was acting like he wasn't a Christian. I said, what? He's like, oh, I'm kidding. And I was like, oh, okay. So then that's when he introduced me to himself and all that stuff, right? So that's the real reason. Anyways, so one thing about Cuevas is, you know, so I have an older brother, okay? And my brother been out of prison, all this stuff. So, you know, we used to do a lot of things growing up and all this stuff, right? But I never had first off, a Christian person to like lead me like, you know, to Christ, okay? And then when I first got saved in 2012, I was someone who was leading me in a way of like, you know, I can rap for the Lord. I didn't know this, okay? So then as the year of 2012 was going on, when I first got saved, I was learning that I could rap for the Lord, do Christian lyrics, but then, like he said, hype, you know, I was a performer, so I used to dance and rap and all that. Great breath control, by the way, but I'm just saying. But then I would see him throughout the year, the beginning of that year, and you know, one day he saw me at Faith Temple, actually, when it was Faith Temple, when I was rapping with a group, and he saw me like worshiping the Lord, and then I got interrupted to go in the back for backstage hypeness or something like that, and then when him and Sarah was there, and I guess that stuck with him or whatever. So then eventually, you know, he invited me to the studio, all that stuff he said. But from there, though, I learned that, you know, ministering isn't just on a microphone on the stage, okay? And so, like he said, he called me when he talked about ministering, so I brought my CDs and stuff, I'm ready to rap. He's like, you know, I had my little polo on, a red polo. I remember this, like, walking right down the street from my house, and so he's like, I want you to pick up those tables, da-da-da. I said, wait, you call me the minister? Like, what's up with this? Like, he's like, this is ministry. Ain't available for the Lord to use you. And so ever since then, though, my whole perspective of ministry and serving, like, shifted. Like, and so the Lord has blessed me with this heart to serve, like, in that capacity, as opposed to, like, just put your hands up. Like, and that blessed me. Honestly, it took me a long way. Actually, it humbled, even when I have a sociology degree, minor in civic engagement, and it humbles a lot of people in that field, you know, to serve unto the Lord as opposed to just community service, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, and then he also taught me how to hear from the Holy Spirit by myself, like, so of course, like, throughout the years of me going into, like, from 16 to 18, you know, he had answered those questions I have and all of those types of things. He had me around, da-da-da. But then eventually, when I started going to college, he would start saying, I don't know, ask the Lord. I'm like, come on, man, I need an answer. Like, help, just give me the answer real quick. And he kept saying that, and I was getting mad, man. I'm like, yo, what's up with this dude? I'm done, like, asking this dude questions. But it challenged me to hear from the Holy Spirit myself, to hear from God myself, to seek the Lord myself. And, you know, for that, I'm definitely grateful for it. Because without that, you know what I'm saying, I would always rely on what Cuevas say, or, you know, Pastor Tony, or somebody else might say. And so that just really blessed me a lot throughout the years. But one big thing I appreciate about Cuevas is that I see, so when I first started, you know those people who you think don't sin? because they so like in tune with the Lord. I thought Cuevas ain't sin. I'm like, yo, what is this dude weakness? So I used to always be thinking about that when I'm with him, right? And but you know, as I got to know him more just personally, as opposed to just a minister, like personally, I started seeing him more and more as a human. I was like, okay. You know, but then I started being able to see his growth just with different things, you know, things like feeding me. Like this dude, yo, all right, I gotta share this story. So me and I think it was me and my cousin, I forgot, but we walked up to actually Ben Goodman right there at the church, whatever, and it was mad hot that day. I'm like, dang, like we get to the door, yo, we here, right? Drained, like, and I'm like, yo, you got water or something? Like, what's up? Cause like, man, you good? I'll be outside in a minute. And then I guess Sarah was like, man, go get him some water, and you know, just things of that nature. Where like, you know, with talking to people, and I just see him grow in different ways, in different areas, as a man of the Lord. You know what I'm saying? And it's been very appreciative of that. And so, I guess anywhere I go personally, they're gonna know who Cuevas is because like this dude discipled me. Like he really mentored me, discipled me, showed me the ways of the Lord, without being hype of everything. It was like to really hear from the Spirit Himself, and that caused me to be able to get through the rest of high school when I got saved, throughout college, after college, to where I'm at now, to be able to like pour into the kids that have lives. To be appreciative of where I'm at, you know what I'm saying? They have joy where I'm at. So I'm always looking for answers and all this stuff. Like, all the stuff I'm sure he remember me as a teenager asking me these questions. Like, sometimes I got to get the reminder, like, okay, I'm not there no more. Like, I'm a grown man now, right? And so I knew this dude for 11 years now. And so, you know, just to remember having a fake mustache and having a real mustache, like, you know what I'm saying, to see him, you know, it's just crazy, though, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, this dude is awesome. I remember Pastor Tony, actually. I actually didn't meet Pastor Tony for a while, but I remember him because Cuevas always talk about him. He'd be like, oh, yeah, this is Sorry guy with Pastor Tony, or, you know, there's Pastor Tony up there. And I heard you preach, actually, at Joy when I went there. And then to be at his wedding and stuff, like, you know, just really helped me set a foundation that, like, oh, all marriages ain't terrible. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, marriages can actually reflect Jesus? That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Even with
you know
a cape
I mean?
on.
So,
even with a
cape on, right? You know what I'm
Superman
saying? So, you know, just seeing all the different stuff that I wasn't exposed to just growing up, like, really, you know, I'm grateful for it. You know, because I really wouldn't be the man or minister I am, like, today. So, amen.
You know what? Discipleship, you could make it all kinds of stuff, but it's got to be led by Jesus. It's got to be led by the Spirit of the Lord. I remember Lou asking me before he got started in the basketball or going to Franklin, and he said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Go there and share your heart, share your testimony with these kids. Don't start teaching whatever. Just share who you are. The importance of being real and letting them know I love you. You know, I mean, before I could talk to Cuevas in my home about chilling and talking, and I had to make sure he knew I was committed to him, you know. And I taught a class at Elam where the students were going into the city, and they go into the city with their Bibles in their hands, sit down next to these people on the street and start scriptures and reading to them. I said, do you know the guy's name? Do you know, I mean, do you know anything about him? Does he know about you? I mean, build relationship, you know. And that, as difficult as it was, if you know you're called of God, you ride the Bronco. You know, you don't get tossed.